Hello everyone, I get the privilege of bringing you a devotion today. I want to talk to you today in this devotion. It's going to be out of 2 Corinthians chapter 4. The thought that had occurred to us a few years ago, Sherry and I were down in Wales and we visited Earthen Castle. And this was the castle that Charles was coronated in. And when we went there to visit, they had pictures of the banners and the royal robes and the tons and tons of people that came out for the event. And although we went, that was not going on, and it was seemingly an empty shell of a castle. There was hardly a banner or anything royal going on. They might not have gotten a memo that we were going to be there, but there certainly wasn't a red carpet rolled out or anything like that. But it was really interesting. We had this thought while we were there, that it was the same castle in the pictures, in the video of Charles's coronation, but it was more just an empty shell, and that it's entirely different when the king is present or when there's royalty there than when it is not, and it seemed like an empty shell. And we realized that it's like you can have the smallest shack but with the presence of God, or you can have an elaborate castle that can seem like an empty shell without any presence. Paul says this in 2 Corinthians. I'm going to read out of the Amplified, and I just really like how it puts it. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, starting in verse 7. However, we possess this precious treasure, the divine light of the gospel, in frail human vessels of earth, clay jars, that the grandeur and exceeding greatness of the power may be shown to and from God, and not from ourselves. We are hedged in and pressed on every side. We're troubled and oppressed in every way, but we're not cramped or crushed. We suffer embarrassments and are perplexed and unable to find a way out, but not driven to despair. We are pursued, persecuted, and hard driven, but not deserted to stand alone. We are struck down to the ground, but never struck out or destroyed. Always carrying about in the body the liability and exposure to the same putting to death that the Lord Jesus suffered, so that the resurrection life of Jesus may also be shown forth by and in our bodies. And skipping down to verse 16, Paul says, therefore we do not become discouraged. And hopefully this devotion encourages you today. We do not become discouraged, utterly spiritless, exhausted, and wearied out through fear. Though our outer man is progressively decaying and wasting away, yet our inner self is being progressively renewed day after day. For our light, momentary affliction, this slight distress of the passing hour, is ever more abundantly preparing and producing and achieving for us an everlasting weight of glory beyond all measure, excessively surpassing all comparisons and calculations, of vast and transcendent glory and blessedness, since we consider and look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are visible are temporal, brief, and fleeting, but the things that are invisible are deathless and everlasting. And he says, like, we're, earthen vessels, jars of clay, we're frail. Within us we contain the greatest treasure, for within us is the Spirit of God. We can take courage today, even with these momentary light afflictions, even though hardships and troubles seem to be on the horizon, that they're temporary, and God is eternal. And I pray that you are encouraged today in all things. The presence of God makes all the difference. The presence of the King changes things.